life in general is so uncertain. Why would you sort of assume that you know what's gonna happen in like 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Like, why would you make like a whole roadmap of how everything's gonna like turn out? Because like you don't know how the fuck it's gonna turn out, you know? That makes it so cool, you know? That makes life so fucking awesome.
Greetings and welcome back to another episode of The Bit Between. Today we have Khaled AKA Tekkons. How's it going, man?
Good, how about you?
Doing great. So before we kind of talk about your story, how you got into animation and art in general, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm Khalid. I'm 23 years old. I live in the Netherlands, and I am an animation student studying in Rotterdam in my third year currently. And yeah, I just really like to draw and animate, make stuff. Also a lot of other stuff, but I could go on talking about things I like, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, give us some examples, like what sort of stuff, what other stuff do you like?
I really like to read. This is like such a lame flex, but yeah, I didn't read all of them though, but I like to read. I like to sort of pretend that I'm a reader, you know, like I used to read a bit more, but nowadays I'm super distracted by using TikTok. I downloaded it like a few days ago and it's like super fucking addicting, but I'm gonna give it a try, you know, like give every media platform a try. Yeah, reading is fun. I like nonfiction, fiction. I'll read pretty much anything. I really like Murakami. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's a Japanese fiction writer. Really cool.
Nice. I have a similar case. I have like 30 books on a shelf and I haven't read a single one of them, but it makes me feel like I read, you know?
Yeah, it feels good, you know? It's like, wow, I got all these books. Like, I'm gonna read them someday, but not today,
Exactly.
you know? Yeah.
Cool, bro. Well, you said that you're an animation student and you just like drawing on. How did you kind of get into art? Have you always been into art and animation?
Yeah, actually, in a broad sense, yeah. When I was a kid, my dad already like showed me his paintings because he used to paint on these carpets and like other sort of fabrics in Afghanistan, and we had some of those paintings like up the walls. And like me as a like fucking 4-year-old kid, I would look at those and be like, "Yo, that's fucking sick! That's fucking amazing!" And I just looked at all the colors, and sometimes I would watch him paint stuff. So he would like, I don't know why, but I specifically remember this one mixing color of like blue and green, which is turquoise. That also is my favorite color, I think, because of that. But yeah, I think that really inspired me to sort of just draw as a little child. My mom would also draw. I would say my whole family is pretty creative, although they're not necessarily in creative pursuits right now, but they're just creative people, I would say. And yeah, just cartoons like Pokemon, that kind of stuff. I was fucking obsessed with like watching cartoons as a kid. Yeah. Whoa, that's crazy, bro.
Everybody's like, "Oh my god, how did you not watch Pokemon?" But I just kind of I watched like Johnny Test. I watched Amazing World of Gumball, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, like all these other ones. But Pokemon, like I just never got into it. I don't know why.
You know, the other ones are also valid. You know, they're all like unique experiences.
True.
Watching those as a
But
kid.
having Pokemon being so huge, like it feels weird. Not knowing Pokemon. You feel me?
Yeah, I can get that.
Like,
yeah, did you ever like sort of try to check it out later on?
no, dude. I thought I was late to the party, and I just kind of gave up. A bunch of my homies and I, we do like 3D render challenges where we take random Pokemon and then we just try and build them in 3D. And they're all like, "Oh yeah, that's his second evolution of this and blah." And I'm like, "Bro, I have absolutely no idea what's going on here. I feel so out of place."
That's funny.
Yeah.
I would say that like if you would watch it now, it's not the same anymore because it is for children, you know. So if you rewatch it, then you're really gonna see like, okay, this is kind of childish. Like it's fun, but yeah.
But there's a certain beauty in that though, isn't there? Like, because you watch it as a kid and you kind of have that nostalgia and the childhood attached to that cartoon now. So you're not just watching the cartoon, you're remembering your childhood, you're remembering like watching it with your friends or playing it on the DS, and you have so much more attached to it. It's not just the cartoon anymore. Whereas for me, like, I have no attachment whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like in the latter scenario, then it makes less sense. But if you watch it for the nostalgia, then it's definitely gonna have like so much emotional value.
Did you get a lot of inspiration to animate from Pokemon? Because animation is kind of the thing you're studying at the moment.
Not really, actually. I was never really inspired by Pokemon to sort of animate, but I did draw Pokemon as a kid. So like I would draw like a bunch of them, and sort of just like your friends, like I would come up with like evolutions, like, whoa, this is what it would look like if it had an evolution or something like that. But what inspired me to animate, fuck, I don't even know, actually. I don't know. I just started watching anime when I was 14. I think that sort of triggered it. So Naruto, Full Metal Alchemist, SAO, list goes on, just a lot of other stuff as well. I think from that point on, I started to sort of realize like, oh yeah, shit, like animation is a thing you can do, and there's like so many people working on this. It's not just something that you see on TV for little children, you know? So like I realized like there's a bigger world out there of animation. I think that's sort of what inspired me to study it. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you see yourself kind of going into the industry and becoming an animator for like a studio to work on an anime, or do you kind of see yourself going more of the independent route, which is kind of something you've been working on a little bit more?
Bro, to be honest with you, I have no fucking clue. Like, I don't know. I have no idea where I'm headed or where I'm gonna be at in a few years. So I just sort of do what I think is dope and just sort of pursue that. So the result of that has been more like independent stuff because I don't know, like you just it kind of sucks to rely on other people or just studios to hire you and like have you work for them. So that's why I just focus on doing things myself, putting it out there. And yeah, ideally I would like to sort of build something on my own, maybe with a team, maybe alone. But I just don't really like waiting around and like sort of starting as a, how's it called? Like those people that like intern and like have to bring coffee to everyone, that kind of stuff. Like it's just, I feel like I don't need to wait. Like we don't need to wait anymore for that kind of stuff. You know, like you can start your own thing already. You can build your own social media platform, like your social media presence and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll just see where it goes.
I think I agree with you. Like, you can start doing your own thing. I mean, even you've done like your own short film. However, I think the exposure that your work can get and the connections that you'll get, it's still difficult to get those without going into industry or without at least having some more experience down that route. I have a friend who worked on movies for like 20 years in the VFX world, and like he knows so many people, and he like has a lot of similar minded people as well. And I think that one of the reasons I think going into a studio would help me at least would be like just meeting people who are doing the exact same thing as you are on like a similar trajectory, because you can both help each other, you can both give each other criticism, and I think the progress that you'll see is better. Like, imagine if you're animating and every single time like you finish something, you can go to the people physically around you and be like, yo, how can I improve this? So it does have its place, but I get what you mean. Like, it's not needed anymore because we have other outlets and other ways of sharing our work. Whereas before, like, if you're just drawing in your room, like, there ain't no way anybody's gonna see that.
That's true. That's true. You have to put it out there. Like you still have to put yourself out there, and if that's through going to studios and trying to get a job there, or building something online, or networking with people in the industry, you still have to do that. And I also agree with you. Like that's also my main reason why I would still be open for studio work and jobs, because it would be amazing to have like-minded people around you that work on the same sort of vision. And yeah, that would really be like a nice inspiration, and also just to get people to sort of know you in the industry. I think it's important. It's like one of those common tips that animators always give. It's just like get yourself known in the industry so you can have connections, especially in animation, because it's just a lot of teamwork. Especially if you want to make big things like films and series, then it's almost impossible to do alone. There's only a few exceptions, like people like Victoria Vincent Viun. I'm not sure if you know her, but she has like her own YouTube series of animation shorts, which is doing like really cool. But even that, like, I think she's animating everything by herself, but then there's someone working on the sound and someone working on the editing. So there's still like a team behind it, even in that case.
So let's kind of move on to your own short film that you finished not so long ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's called Transmutation, right?
Yes.
So, where did the idea to see this short film? If you haven't seen the short film, you can go to his Instagram bio on the YouTube, and it's there. And I definitely recommend checking it out. But where did you kind of get the idea for this short film? Because it's quite deep. It's quite like heavy. It's not like something that you'd watch just flippantly. It's kind of thought provoking.
Yeah, I really tried to sort of, usually like the prior years, I would draw and animate sort of solely focusing on visuals. So I'm a very visual person. I just like to have like aesthetics and sort of build that kind of world. But at some point I started to realize like, wow, I'm so focused on like visual aspects, and maybe I was also sort of getting more into reading and learning things about philosophy, psychology. And at some point I started writing. So I started like writing stories, writing about thoughts, ideas, concepts, and that sort of other creative aspect of my work started to grow. And at some point I realized like, hey, why don't I connect these two things? Because animation is a storytelling medium, and it would be like a perfect way to combine like the visual aesthetics along with a narrative. And yeah, that's sort of how I came to the idea, the motivation to sort of go after that. And that's what I've been sort of focusing my mind on with my school projects as well. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. And I would also say that Carl Jung, the psychologist from Swiss, I think, he also really, like his work and his theories really inspired me to dig deeper into the human mind and just what it means to be like a person, like an individual, and yeah, what comes with like a whole self, like if you are just like one being, or if there's like different aspects that you have, if there's anything that you don't know about yourself that might be hidden somewhere. So yeah, those kind of things really triggered my thoughts, and that's how it all like sort of blended together over the course of a few months.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, let's kind of go a bit deeper into those theories, because you explained it a little bit to me when I was asking you about it, and you sent me a bunch of good resources. But how would you kind of summarize this whole idea of the self, and what were you trying to do when you made this short film?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I would say that whenever I'm making something, I'm sort of still figuring out myself what I'm trying to do. So it's not like I know beforehand, like, okay, this is exactly how it's going to look like. It's really like an intuitive process for me. So I'll be sort of thinking about things in an introspective way and be like, how does this relate to me? How does this relate to others? And then from there on, it just comes out in like a drawing or a writing or anything. So especially like the thing that triggered the story is the concept of the shadow, which is also from Carl Jung, and it basically, like in short, like that, it's pretty deep. So like you can like go on to this for like a really long time. I suggest watching like YouTube videos and stuff, checking out more about it. But um, every human has like things that they repress or avoid or hide from either themselves, others, society, because they have not been accepted or they are unable to accept themselves, which is usually what it comes down to. Like, it's just things that you haven't come to terms with yourself. For example, maybe you have some anger issues, or you've been very avoidant when it comes to loving people, stuff like that. And if you don't give that the attention that it deserves, like maybe it'll be like an emotion bugging your mind or a thought bugging your mind, and you sort of push it away, like, nah, fuck it, like I'm not gonna be thinking about this negative stuff. It can become a demon or like a monster. Like it can become something really big, it can become something that haunts you every night, doesn't let you sleep anymore. And I think we all have things like this, so it's very universal experience. And yeah, in the short film, how it relates to that is that he sort of, well, Sora, the main character of the story, he's like a high school graduate almost, and tries to figure out what he wants to do with his life. He goes into this sort of like internal mind, internal void space where he has a conversation with his higher self or his shadow, and there he sort of comes to see things that he has been repressing, things he has been hiding, things that he didn't even know about himself. And yeah, that's kind of what inspired it mostly, like the shadow self. And aside from that, also the mask comes up in it as well. So how you present yourself to other people, like we all want to be liked and appreciated and respected, and this causes us to sort of act a certain way. Maybe it's not fully aligned with ourselves, maybe it's partly aligned. It also depends how close you are to a person, of course. Like a total stranger, you're gonna behave differently than your best friend. But yeah, it's interesting how you present yourself to the world, and I wanted to convey that in a short film as well, because sometimes you think you are a certain kind of person, but you're not, because it's just a mask that you've been putting on. It's just what other people want you to be, or you've told yourself that that's what you should be. Just stuff like that.
Deep shit.
Yeah, I could go on for hours, man. Like I feel like an hour podcast is like not long enough for us to talk about this shit, because I can like, we still have like so much to talk about if you want to like really dive into this.
Yeah, I mean, might as well dig in a little bit more. One thing I've kind of been thinking about is identity and how, for example, I'm trying to work out more. I'm trying to get exercise more, and so one way of doing that is kind of instead of saying, "Oh, I'm trying to go to the gym," just identifying as a person who goes to the gym, and telling yourself and tricking your mind into doing that. Something that I've been reading Atomic Habits recently, and that's kind of one of the things it's been talking about at the beginning. And so I'm trying to identify with somebody who goes to the gym. I'm trying to build an identity of a person that I want to become, and then trick myself into thinking I am that person. So how does the identity and the mask, what's kind of the line between them? And is the identity what we think we are, and then the mask what we try to project onto others?
Yeah, I think so. I think the mask, like it's maybe the way I described it just now sounded like a bit negative, but I think the mask is also something that it can be a very positive thing. So what you just explained, maybe you don't feel like the gym person yet, but if you put on the mask of being the gym person, then eventually the mask becomes real and you cannot even differentiate anymore. And it can be a really good thing because you can sort of shape your own identity in that way. And yeah, like by sort of, the famous quote, like fake it till you make it kind of stuff. Like if you fake it, like if you sort of go after something that you want to be, but you're not, and you really act towards that instead of only thinking about it and like idealizing it and stuff, then you sort of start to gravitate towards that person because you're doing the things that the person you want to be does. So it goes from a fantasy to a reality, and that's how your identity is shaped.
Yeah, eventually you'll forget you're pretending.
Yeah, like at some point you're not even pretending anymore. It's just real life. Like it's like, oh yeah, I actually do this shit now.
Yeah, because you've tricked yourself into becoming that thing that you wanted to become. Yeah.
Exactly. By the way, Atomic Habits is such a classic. It's a really cool book. It really changed my outlook on habits and just self perception and shit.
How about any other books? Any books that kind of influenced, just influenced you the most? Let's say.
All right. First thing that comes to mind is The Courage to Be Disliked. I don't know the name of the writer, but it's a Japanese writer, and most of the content discussed there is from a specific philosophy. It's called the Adler philosophy, and it sort of relates to like Freud and Jung and that kind of stuff. But the main point of that, what was the main point of that? Sometimes it's so hard to sort of describe things because it's so like you're reading a book and then you internalize all of it, and sometimes it's conscious but sometimes it's subconscious. So like I'll read something and it's like, oh yeah, true, but then I forget about it, but I don't really like somewhere it still stays, in my subconscious, and then I don't know how to explain it anymore. Like you sort of just become it. But for the sake of keeping things a bit clear, uh, it's like this sort of ongoing dialogue between a student and a philosopher, and the student is like this sort of nihilist, this guy who's like, there's no meaning to life, like there's so many shitty things happening, and the philosopher is this fucking based like Buddha guy, like he's like old as fuck, wise as fuck. He's also like sort of a Chad, maybe, I don't know, like that's how I imagine him. Like he's just really cool, and they clash in ways that are like very opposite, but as the story progresses, they sort of like come to more and more agreements, and it's really interesting to see that dialogue happen, like reading it, because kind of kind of feels like how you're having discussions with yourself in your own mind. Like there's always this one part that's like kind of negative, and then there's this other part that's like positive and more focused on like actual good things, like your higher self or whatever. So yeah, I would say that book really changed my outlook on life. And other books, I think it's aside from that, it's just like a mixed mash of like a bunch of other books and also podcasts or YouTube channels. There's this one YouTube channel that's called Academy of Ideas, and they discuss a very wide range of philosophy, psychology, societal subjects, and that also really influenced me, I think. Yeah.
Solid. Have you read How to Win Friends and Influence People?
I have heard of it. It's on my to-read list, but I have not read it. What about you?
That book completely just changed my life, man. I read it in the first couple of months when I went to university, and since then, like, my people skills have just rapidly increased. I wouldn't say I was bad with people beforehand, but I thought I was good. Then I read that book and I realized that I really wasn't as good as I thought, and that there's a lot more to it when it comes to just kind of asking people about themselves and becoming more likable. And it's not. It kind of when you describe it like that, it kind of sounds like it's coming from insecurity, but really it's all just about making the most of the interactions that you have with people and figuring out like a way to just get along better with people. Some people have called the book manipulative, and they don't really agree with it on an ethical level, because it some people say like you learn how to take advantage of people by using some of the techniques, but I would kind of say, it's just about making the most of interactions that you have with people and figuring out like how to just be a better people person, how to connect with people, how to, have the confidence and the ability to, for example, like right now, just hit up somebody randomly, talk about their short film a little bit, and then do a podcast with them. And, just randomly, two randomers just having a conversation on a podcast. Things like that I wouldn't be able to do if it wasn't for that book. So How to Win Friends and Influence People is like one of the ones that I think everybody should read, to be honest.
All right, then I'm definitely gonna read it. Sounds really convincing. I already heard some good things about it, but then, as you said, like there were like some people describing it as like manipulative and stuff. But of course, I didn't read, so I don't know. But I feel like it kind of gave me sort of mixed feelings about it. Like, should I read it? Should I not? But this sounds very convincing, so I'm gonna read it.
And I think another argument is if you know the techniques before they're used on you as well, like you can kind of you can see when somebody's doing that to you. It feels a bit like a mind game now, but yeah, it's good.
Do you know the movie Mind Game?
No. What's it about?
It's really sick. It's from this Japanese animator Masaki Iwasa. It's like super weird. Like it's really weird to explain. But I would say just watch it and see for yourself.
Dude, that is honestly like one of the best things you can say about movies. Like, just because, like you said before, sometimes explaining something, you can't do it. You have like a piece of art or a book or something, and you're just like, I have no idea how to explain to you what I've just consumed, just to go look at it yourself.
Yeah, for real. Like some things you just need to experience. It doesn't make sense to explain. Like you just need to experience it. That's why I know I'm on a podcast here talking about art, but I'm usually like not the kind of person that would sort of explain everything, because I really like to just have people experience things and be like, just just sort of experience it for yourself, and then you can really think about it more deeply rather than having to sort of just hear the experience of other people. I think it's cool if you experience it yourself and then hear the experience of other people. So, for example, maybe there'll be like people watching this who are making art, making animations, or just doing anything creative. Then it's really cool to see how other people are experiencing that similar journey, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I was just about to ask you more stuff about the short film and structuring it and how you kind of got things done, blah, blah, blah. But realistically, I could ask you all the questions in the world. However, until I've made my own short film, until I've been through that process and experienced it myself, I don't really know what goes into it. And you can learn from other people without having experienced it, but I think experience is the best teacher at the end of the day.
Exactly. Like you can for sure learn about things without having experienced it, but then the experience itself is gonna give you lessons that are unique to you, because it's like such a unique experience and only you have experienced that specific thing. So there's gonna be things that you get out of it that you otherwise wouldn't understand. But you can still ask me anything, by the way. Like I don't want to scare you away of asking me things about the short film or stuff. I'll try my best to explain myself.
Yeah, that's fine. Before I ask you, have you heard of Mary in the Black and White Room?
No,
I
what is
believe
it?
that's what it's called. So essentially, I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's imagine there's a girl called Mary,
Okay.
and she lives in a room that's entirely black and white, right? The paper, the bed, everything is black and white. There's no color to be seen. And she lives in there till she's 20 years old. However, while she's in there, she studies color, right? She's been given textbooks and she's been given books that talk about color, talks about color theory and how they look, how different colors feel. Red is angry, blah blah blah, all this stuff about color. And she's learned everything that there is to know in theory about color. Now let's pretend we take Mary, we take her out of the room, and we shove her into a forest. She sees like the brown of the bark of the trees, she sees the green leaves, the birds flying by, a blue sky, the water. She sees all of these colors. She experiences color, right? This is called qualia, like experiencing something. Now, in the first instance where she's in the black and white room, she's learned everything that there is to know about color. However, she hasn't had the qualia, she hasn't had the experience of color. And so the argument is that, you can learn everything in theory, but until you experience the color like Mary did when she comes out of the black and white room, she felt the color, then she doesn't truly know everything about it. So this is sort of an argument for not just going on the theory of everything and actually just plunging into the deep end and really putting yourself in there and experiencing things. Because when you put yourself in there are certain things that cannot be written down on paper. There are certain things that cannot be put into theory. They just have to be experienced. They just have to be felt.
Yeah, that's real as fuck. I think we had, now that you explained the whole story, I think we had this like in philosophy class a few years ago. And it's kind of ironic to me because our philosophy teacher would then tell us this story, but at the same time we were sitting like in school and just hearing like sort of experiences from a teacher and stuff. It's kind of weird. I don't know, but it's really interesting though. I really feel that.
Yeah, a bit hypocritical that you're you're learning about a theory that talks about experiencing whilst being in school talking about theories.
Yeah, but it's still good to have it though. Maybe especially for people in school.
Yeah. So let's talk about school actually. You're an animation student, you said. How valuable do you think your school education for animation has been?
I think it is valuable in the sense that I'm learning to sort of branch myself out and like really be encouraged to leave my comfort zone and try out new things, and also be in a space where there are like-minded people, just like the animation studio. So I have like many classmates who are very excited about animation, art, also teachers, and the teachers also sort of, we treat each other as if we're like collaborators almost. So it's not really like the traditional teacher-student hierarchy. It's more so on like a horizontal level, which is really cool. But then at the same time, I would say like I'm not really there for the diploma or like the paper, because I don't really care about that. Like it's just I want to learn stuff, and this is like one of the ways that I figured out. Like, okay, if I'm gonna learn about animation, might as well study it. Of course, there's also like a societal pressure going on in the background, you know, and also my parents want me to study, so that's sort of like a compromise that I made. I've also been thinking about like, I mean, now I'm in my third year, so like I'm almost done, you know. At this point, I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna finish it. But in the first year, in the second year, and also in my gap year prior, I was thinking about stuff like, yeah, just maybe not studying at all and just figuring things out, like this whole art journey by myself. But it ended up being like a compromise in between. But at the same time, I feel like it's still pretty dope because art schools are not the same as regular schools, especially in the Netherlands. Here it's very autonomous, and you are really encouraged to be like an individual thinker, not just like a robot or something. So yeah, I think it's pretty dope. How about you, by the way? Because you explained that what study were you in, by the way, like in
Yeah, I
university?
was studying biology.
Oh, okay,
And
okay. I sort of, I'm not sure why, but I sort of assumed that you were studying something in arts.
no, so this is the thing. I'd always kind of been like the a little bit on the nerdier side and kind of I was into sciences, and I was decent at maths and just good at school really. But I never really had that much of an interest in it. Like I didn't really care about biology. I just did it because I thought that's what I should do. I was good at it. I could maybe get like an okay job with it, and I was getting good grades. And it was just kind of the school and family were like, oh yeah, you know, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to university, you get a good degree, and then you get a job. And that was just the pipeline that I was following. But once I got to university and I was studying biology, I realized like this is not what I want to do. This is, you know, the furthest thing from what I want to do. So I decided to take a gap year, and just thought, you know, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find a way to make a living online. And I started the podcast around that time. Started a little bit of video editing for people, because I started my YouTube channel about a year before that. And then I found 3D, and 3D is kind of what really took off. And I just get, you know, freelance gigs, let's call them, and I just kind of hop between those and get job after job after job, and that's been working for me so far. So I then took the plunge and just fully dropped out of university after only going there for 3 months, and I do this full time now, which is sick. Like I enjoy my life way more than I did before. So that's kind of my story, at least. Yeah.
That's sick. What made you sort of like what triggered you to go for the making a living online? Like where did that come from?
Good question. So I'd seen people on YouTube do it. I'd seen people become YouTubers and find a way to just kind of make a living just through advertising and sponsorship deals. And for a while, I kind of got that into my mind, and I was thinking of how I'd be able to do that. And then I also met a bunch of people. One of my friends, Diego, and he was living in Puerto Rico, and he had all of these friends in America, and he was just working with them and doing freelance jobs. And one time he told me, like, he made this 3D video for somebody, and he was like, I charged $800 for this video. And I was like, you charged $800 to make a 3D video? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, damn, like, there's an opportunity there as well. So I kind of took inspiration from a couple of people around me at the time that I knew. And then I looked at, you know, YouTubers and just other people on social media, and I realized, like, if they can do it, you know, there's no reason I can't. I have a brain of my own, and, you know, I can figure things out. I trusted in my skills. I trusted in my ability to kind of learn things, and, you know, there are some people that won't be able to do it. There are some people that aren't that type of person to kind of figure things out on their own, and they prefer like having more structure, having more stability, and that's totally fine. But for me, I just kind of thought that this was the way, and there's a bit of a thrill in it, you know, a bit of a thrill knowing like I have not really got a clue what I'll be doing in 5 years' time. But that excites me. That used to scare me a little bit, but you've got to learn to love that feeling of like uncertainty and not knowing,
Yeah, for real.
what's happening next.
Yeah, Apter too, man. It's especially when you're just starting out and you're making a decision, it feels really scary. But once you sort of embrace the fact that uncertainty is such a big part of life, it just becomes so cool, It's just like such an adventurous thing because life in general is so uncertain. So why would you sort of assume that you know what's gonna happen in like 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Like why would you make like a whole roadmap of how everything's gonna like turn out? Because like you don't know how the fuck it's gonna turn out, That makes it so cool, That makes life so fucking awesome because it's just this fucking movie that you don't even know where it's going. And it's just so mysterious,
Yeah, and every life is entirely unique. Every life is a complete different set of stepping stones, and nobody has been on the path that you're going to go through, and nobody will ever be on that path, just you. That makes it really interesting, because, nobody knows what's going to happen. So the short film, let's pretend, because this is actually something I want to do, I wanted to make a short film, a few minutes long, and, probably like 1 to 2 main characters, and it's storyline based, and the visuals are the way I'm telling a story, a little bit similar to how you've done things. Let's pretend I'm trying to do that. What kind of tips and tricks and advice would you give in order to make things better, get things done, plan things out, blah blah blah? What tips and tricks would you give?
Right. So I would say one big thing that helped me a lot is to have a system that works for me. So, and by system I mean everything. So schedule, the way you collect your data, like information, mood boards, inspiration, references. Have like a sort of a personified system that works for you, and maybe you don't know right away what your ideal system is, what hours you'll ideally work. So it's also kind of a trial and error thing. Sort of write down a schedule and a sort of a way how you want to organize the film, the process of making the film, and then test it out. Just see how it works. So let's say you have your schedule ready, and then you decide like, okay, so I'm gonna organize everything in Notion. That's what I did, for example. Like I use Notion to write down all the concepts, all the ideas, and just have like these structures of different scenarios, different timelines. I would also really recommend to not stick to the first idea. It's possible to stick to the first idea. Sometimes the first idea is like fucking sick, but sometimes the first idea is not as sick. And if you keep sort of testing yourself and questioning how things could be different or better, then you might end up with something way cooler than you would initially have. So I would also, like especially with making the script, I had like 50 different scripts or something. So it started out with like a way different thing, but then I was like, okay, this is interesting, but this could also be interesting. So I wrote another script, showed some people the script, so my teachers, classmates, friends, and then they would sort of pick up on a few things and be like, oh, this is interesting, or this could be better, or this could be different, and really sort of take all of that in, and you can ultimately decide what you take in and what you sort of use as feedback or not. But yeah, I would say like also during the process, make sure to every now and then put it out to the world, show your friends, show like some close people or other artists that you know, and just ask them for feedback. And then you can have like these fresh eyes on your work. So yeah, I would say that really works, because sometimes it's easy to get like really wrapped up in your own bubble, which is important. Like the internal world is really important to build on, but it's nice to sort of snap out of it every now and then come back with new information and then go back into your internal world. Yeah.
The idea that I have at the moment, it's all about growing up and kind of letting go of your childhood, because this is kind of the stage that I'm in right now. I'm 19 years old, and I've been living with my parents. When I took the gap year, I decided to move back in with my parents, and I'm probably going to be moving out within the next 5-6 months to go live with one of my best friends. And so this whole process of kind of growing up, but still staying at home and then earning money and kind of just progressing my life further and growing up as a person has been weird for me. So I kind of wanted to find a way to put that all into a little short film. So I'm sure we'll talk about more about that soon. Before we kind of wrap things up, I'm going to ask you a few quick-fire end questions. So the first one would be, what would be some advice for your younger self?
For my younger self, I would say, don't stress out so much. Like, it's pretty recent as well. Even last year or like 2 years ago, I would stress about this whole art thing and be like, oh fuck, like what if it's all gonna flop and what if it's not gonna work out and I'll be like a failure and shit. Like just the fear of failure. I would say, of course, it takes time, but I would definitely just say like embrace the failure because it's gonna make you strong. Failure is gonna help you more than like any success. So that's what I would say for sure. I would also advise that for any young artists, just artists in general, to embrace failing and like don't be so stuck on perfection because nothing is perfect. You can only do the best you can in the here and now. That's all you got. So just embrace that.
Yeah, for sure. You've had a solid amount of success, I'd say, in animation, in art. You know, you've made this short film. You're really good at art and animation. You can see that from your work, and you've worked with some pretty cool people. I've had a look at some of the music videos that you've done for people, and they're really good. What would you say was
Thanks, man.
The split between chance and hard work? So if you had to put a percentage on like how much of that was down to chance and how much of that is down to hard work, what would it be?
Good question. Good question. I'm not sure. Like I've never thought about it in percentages, but I'm definitely sure that chance is like a part of it, and hard work is a part of it as well. So it's definitely not just hard work and also not just chance. I would say that hard work eventually does. Well, I don't know. At the same time, it feels biased to say that, because that's what I like to believe because it helps me to work hard. It's kind of like this truth that I've been giving myself. Like the hard work matters the most because that's gonna give you results. But I also know that some people might like work their ass off for years and like they'll work so hard, but maybe they just don't have like the right connection or just not the right people looking at their work. So I would say it's also very important to, what is it called again? Like every YouTuber says this, be at the right place at the right time. So yeah, you want chance to find you. So put in the hard work, but also be there to be seen. So like have an Instagram, have a TikTok page, show your work, do anything to like just show the hard work that you've done. And eventually I think people will see it. So people will see your efforts, and maybe not like tomorrow or today, but if it's something that you truly want to do and like truly enjoy doing, then I think that energy will like go off to other people as well. But you have to put it out there. So if no one is able to see your work, then you're not going to get lucky. Like you need to always like put out your work, even if it's not where you want it to be. If you feel like I'll start like next year when I'm a better artist, no, like just start now. And even though it's imperfect, like you'll become better at just putting yourself out there, and eventually people will find you. Just the longer that you have been seen, then the more chance you will get to have these opportunities for work or just recognition. Yeah.
Solid advice, man. Solid advice. The final question would be, if everybody in the world was listening to this podcast right now, what would be your one message
Oh,
for
shit.
them?
That's such a fucking sick question, bro. Like you're so good at this podcasting thing. Okay, if the whole world was listening right now, holy fucking shit, bro. Yo, that's fucking wild. Like I would first say this, like, yo, what the fuck, guys? Let's go. Like this is no, wait, let me think. Like because there's so many shitty people in the world as well, Like I don't know, would I at that point would I even be focusing on like the good ones, But then I don't know. I don't even know what to do about the bad ones. I would just I don't know. I would sort of I like in a broad perspective, I feel like people like what the one thing that we need to sort of do as like a species, like as humanities, is to just embrace the fact that we all have different perspectives. Like war and like the disagreements, like from small to big, like sibling fights and like actual like country wars, it all comes from the fact that we don't accept the other person's perspective and stuff. Like first, like hear each other out and like listen to each other. So if even if it's like a between friends or between enemies or whatever, listen to each other and consider each other's perspectives, and don't just feel like your way of thinking is the meta way or like the one way to view life. Also, I would say don't believe in one truth. Like don't think that like the one thing that you believe is the true thing, because like we don't fucking know. Like no one fucking knows. Like stop thinking that you're some sort of god that knows like what's going on and stuff. Just have some humility and embrace the fact that we're all just human beings, you know? Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I would say that to the world, something like that.
Amazing. We're all just human beings.
Yeah, I don't know, like it's just don't put your thoughts or like your beliefs on a pedestal. Don't do that.
Yeah, gotta always be open. Well, dude, it's been amazing to record this podcast episode with you.
Yeah, I had a good time, man. It flew by so fast.
The good ones always fly by. The good ones always fly by. So if people want to find your work, connect with you, look at the short film, you know, where can they find you?
I would say main go to Instagram, Tekkons, Tekkons. From there I have a link tree where you can find my other stuff, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. Yeah.
Amazing, dude.
That's where you can find me.
Once again, it's been amazing to have you on the show. And
thank you for having me, man.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of The Bit Between. Make sure to go check out Khaled's stuff. You can find him on Instagram at Tekkons, that's at Tekkons, and find his short film Transmutation through the link in his bio. Once again, thank you very much for listening and watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode of The Bit Between.